All right, folks, a beautiful day here in Northeast Tennessee. It is quite windy, so bear with me. We are making, or have already made, a 3-bucket emergency water filter. Folks, I know you see 4 buckets there, but that last bucket right there is just to hold the clean water. It's an actual 3-bucket, 1, 2, 3 water filter. Now, this is for folks who, of course, are in an emergency situation, or maybe that just need some fresh water. They don't have access to fresh water. Now, this isn't a Berkey. Folks, we're not going to put a spigot at the end down here and fancy it all up. It's emergency, so you make it with very little. So let's get started. I'm going to pour this water in here. This is what we call a rock bucket. This is where the rock is. Sand in this one. And charcoal in this one. This is the clean water bucket. All right, let's do it now. Let me tell you this. We're going to have to do this 2 or 3 times to clean the rock, to clean the sand, and to clean the charcoal. Otherwise, we're going to get black, we're going to get brown in there. So you got to run this water through a couple of times when this thing is brand new like it is. Folks, you can find buckets all over the planet. Doesn't matter if you're in remote Nigeria or if you're in Ukraine. You can find buckets and bucket lids all over. This is just to give you an idea. You don't have to use plastic buckets. You can use other things. But I wanted to do a video of how simple it is, folks, because if you have a creek, a stream, a river nearby you, then you have access to water, of course, in the creek or the stream or the river, but you also have access for the material you need to make this, and that is rock and sand. Now, charcoal is very simple to make. All you need is fire, and you can make charcoal. Of course, you need wood, but that's a video for another day. I'm going to pour this water in there, and we're going to watch her go on through. Folks, I'm going to turn you loose from this stand here in a minute and take you over. Or actually, I'll bring the things to you, and you'll be able to see the holes that I've made, the size of the holes, and we'll explain it all to you thoroughly. But right now, we're letting the water run through. Let me put a little more in there, and I'll take you over there, let you hear it. Let you see it actually going in, if we can get a nice, we can get the sun to come back out. I'm actually charging this thing as I make the video. Can you hear it? Listen. See if we can see something here, folks. Oh, we can't. We can't see it. If the sun was shining, we'd be able to see that water level through that bucket. You can hear it, though. All right, so see the holes in the bucket? I've got it in the 3 buckets, and that is, you fill something up with water, you want the air to be able to escape, and that's what the hole is for the for the air to escape, or else it would drain very, very slowly, and maybe not at all. There's another one down there somewhere. Rock. You can find rock anywhere, folks. A gravel road, a creek, sand. You can find sand anywhere in the yard, especially in a river, in a creek. Find some river rock in the river or the creek. Excellent. Sand in the creek. Excellent. Charcoal. Folks, if you have trees, especially the hardwoods, the oaks, beech, then you can make charcoal easily. Easily. You can find a bucket or a container of sorts anywhere around the globe. Folks, this plastic crap is all over the place. All right, let me set you down. Now, we're not going to do this today, but like I said before, hang on, folks. Like I said before, you've got to run water through this thing a couple of times to cleanse out the powder from the charcoal, the dirt off of the rock, and anything in the sand. All right, folks, so I've got, and I'll show you everything in just a minute, so bear with me. I used a drill, cordless drill, and a drill bit. And I drilled about a 3/16. I took about a 3/16 bit, and I drilled holes in the bottom with that bit, in the bottom of this bucket here that has the rock. So I did the bigger holes because I wanted it to flow through pretty quick. Now in all of the lids, every one of them, this one, and this one, in the lids I used the same bit, a bigger bit, because I want water to go through the lid very fast. Don't want it to overflow. So I used the bigger bit, the 3/16 on that, on the lids, all three lids. This is the sand bucket. Now on the bottom of this bucket, I used like a 1/16, if that, a drill bit, a very small drill bit. Put a ton of holes in it. But I used that small, and I'll show it to you in a minute. I used that drill bit, the small, like a 1/16 of an inch drill bit on the bottom of the sand bucket. And that is, well, to keep the sand from going through and to slow the draining process down and let that water sit in there for just a little bit and go through slowly. The same exact thing with the charcoal. Same exact. And of course, this is just our holding bucket that holds our clean, fresh, drinkable water. Now I'll show you what I was talking about. We'll let her finish draining. She's doing it now. I wish she was going through a little slower, going through a little quicker than I would like, but it's doable. And if you ain't real sure, run it through again. If you ain't real sure, run it through again, and it'll cleanse it. That's for sure. Like I said, the holes, you need some air holes, so you put your air hole up here, and in the one below it at the top of it. What else? Rock, sand, charcoal. Rock, sand, charcoal. And then you got your holder bucket there, your bucket that holds everything. All right, let me plug you back in. I'm gonna keep you charging. We're gonna keep you charging now. After I get done here, survival, then I'd suggest you shut this off. Not yet, though. We're not done. She's still draining. I can hear her. Oh, my goodness. Rock, folks. Rock. About a 3/16 drill bit. Now listen, in an emergency situation, you won't be able to find a cordless drill and a drill bit. You probably wouldn't be able to charge a cordless drill. So you would find a nail, a 16 penny nail or something, and use a rock and drive holes in this thing. Then you'd find you a smaller nail to do the smaller holes on the other buckets. This is the lid that goes into the sand bucket from the rock bucket. See the big holes? They're the same as the bottom of the rock bucket. Got them everywhere. See the dirt that came off of the rock? That's why we run it through 2, 3, 4 times. We run it through a couple of times, maybe 3 times, your first go around to get all that debris and dust and dirt out. Sand. Sand. All right, so notice the tiny holes. See those tiny, tiny holes? Tiny holes. Find whatever you need to make the holes. If you can get a hold of a knife or a razor blade, you can make slits. You don't have to make holes. They could be just little slits. Now, this isn't a Berkey. We're not worried about putting a spigot on it. If we do all that, put a spigot on it and use screen, we might as well just go buy a Berkey. This is an emergency 3-bucket water filter for the folks in Ukraine, for the folks in remote Nigeria, for the folks after a hurricane. If you can find a screen, use it. You can wrap the whole inside of the bucket in the screen or put it on the bottom, but you don't need a screen with the way I did this. And most situations, you're not going to find a screen. Let's keep moving, folks. This is the charcoal bucket. 3/16, the bigger holes. Don't have to be 3/16, but just a bigger hole. This is the lid that the sand bucket set on, going into the charcoal bucket. Charcoal bucket full of charcoal. Now, I do have the smaller charcoal in there and see it, mixed with the bigger. You're better off to knock this on down, chop it on up a little bit, and have like dime size, peanut size, acorn size charcoal. I do have more small than large in here, but the small stuff is on the bottom. You're better off though with the smaller charcoal, for sure. And all you gotta do is just beat it with a rock or a hammer. Now you see the black? That's the powder of the charcoal. We've got to run it through a couple of more times to get rid of that powder. We're not going to do it today, but can you see the tiny holes? Yeah. This was setting on our holder bucket, the bucket that holds our clean water. Was sitting on top of it, and the charcoal bucket was on top of this lid with the big holes. We want the big holes on the lid because we don't want this thing overflowing. We want the water to go on through. We want the small holes on the sand bucket and the charcoal bucket to keep the contents in the bucket, but to slow the draining process down and let that water sit in there for a little bit. Now I'm going to show you the water. It's actually not that dirty. I'm shocked. But it is dirty. And I would drink that if I had to. But why do that? I would just run some more water through, and maybe 2 or 3 more times to clean it up a little bit. Now, it's not terrible. But it is got a little bit of charcoal in there. That's it, folks. Now, I know you've seen 4 buckets, but 1 bucket is just basically a bucket to hold things. It's not part of the filter, actually. Folks, you can do whatever you put your mind to, it can be done. In a hurricane, in a Ukraine situation where they're getting the crap bombed out of them, maybe you might live in a remote village somewhere in Zimbabwe, and you need fresh water, you need clean water. You've got water, but it's not clean. This is the best way to do that. And the reason it's the best way, it's the quickest way. The materials are easy, accessible. You can get them. They're all over the place, these buckets. And then if you can find a water source, you can usually find sand and rock. Charcoal's very easy to make. And yeah. Now, folks, we're not shooting for a Berkey here. Remember that. I've said that a couple of times. We're not shooting for a Berkey. It's not what we're doing here. This is for poor folks. This is for folks in need. I've got a Berkey in the house. I don't need this. But some folks don't have a Berkey. Some folks need this. Well, why wouldn't you just boil water? Well, you can just boil water. But this is the way to go. All right, so just a quick story here, folks. So that's the end of the video. I want to throw this story in there because it'll help somebody. All right, so true story, folks. And me making this has prompted me to tell this story. All right, so I've got a friend. He's been a friend my whole life. We're not real close. Never been real close. We kind of close at times, but he was a little older than me. Native American, and his dad was Native American. And we grew up around each other, his family, my family. Well, we parted ways years ago. But then when we got back together 10, 15 years ago, he told me a story of how he was down on his luck. He hurt his back and he got put on disability. And although he could do odd jobs here and there, he still couldn't exert himself too much. Other than that, he's very healthy, still very healthy. Very smart. And which most Native Americans are very smart. The smartest person I've ever known my whole life was actually Native American fella. Yeah, last name Fletcher, you might know him. And his son is actually smarter than him. Anyway, we won't go down that road. But this fella, he had a little bit of money, and about $2,500. And he found a house. He lived in Conyers, found a house for sale, owner financing, in North Georgia. Well, he knew the guy who was selling the house. That's what the guy does. He sells and owner finances houses. And so he knew the guy, not real good, but he did know the fella. And so he calls him up and says, hey, I want that house you're advertising. Tell me about it, blah, blah, blah. Well, my friend only had $2,500, and that was the down payment. Now, being on disability, that's all he had. And his check wasn't for $2,500, folks. It wasn't that much, but he had saved that money. Well, he had to be out of his place in Conyers. And so he had his $2,500 down payment with no extra money. Where he was moving, he was buying the house, but he didn't have the money to get the electricity on or the water on, or to even buy food. He had to wait a whole month for that until he got his next check. He did have a vehicle and a truck, and it was full of gas. Now, he couldn't take perishables with him, so he had to leave everything there in his fridge. He did take some canned goods, salt and pepper, and some things like that. Now, when the fella got there, he did all the paperwork. They did their thing, and he went and stayed in his house. Stayed in his house without electricity and running water. Folks, there was a creek nearby, and the people had left a bunch of junk around the house. They also left about 12 chickens that were roaming free. He couldn't catch them, so he studied them and he watched where they laid their eggs, and that's what he ate, about 10 to 12 eggs a day for a month. That's how he made it. You can make it, folks. It's not that hard. Well, he found some buckets with some lids. There was a creek nearby. So he got rock, he got sand, and he knew how to make charcoal. And he made this system here, folks. He made this emergency water filter system. And that's what he washed his dishes with. Now, he had dishes. And that's what he cooked with, and that's what he drank. He had the chickens for eggs. And he had water because of his 3-bucket water filter system. True story, folks. True story. Anyway, folks, we'll see you.